1983 when he was drafted by the Utah Jazz from NC State, where Thurl beat the Houston Cougars to win the NCAA National Championship. He had an amazing career in the NBA for 16 years, becoming a player and fan favorite known as Big T Bailey. What's even more impressive than his NBA career has been the work that Thurl has done for his community, supporting children, bringing greater diversity and inclusion awareness, and becoming an accomplished singer with multiple best-selling albums. Over the years, Thurl has helped Nu Skin evolve into the company that it is today. So let's welcome Thurl to the stage.
Thank you, Tyler and Ryan. Okay, I want you to think fast. Can you remember the first time you became passionate about something? Now, I don't mean that flash in the pan feeling where you got really excited for just a little while, maybe a day or a week, or maybe even a month. I mean a definitive passion, the kind of passion that maybe kept you up at night because you couldn't wait to get started. Well, I hope you've had those kind of moments. I know I have. But it's always that first one that kind of defines you, right? I'm going to take you back. I'm going to take you back to when I was 13 years old. I was 6 feet 5 inches tall, if you can believe that. And I was walking through the living room of the house I grew up in. I can see it today in my mind's eye. My mom's forest green couch sitting in the living room. You couldn't spill on my mother's couch either. She had this really thick, clear plastic on it. And I remember my dad sitting there and watching a basketball game. You see, even though I was 6 feet 5 inches tall, I didn't know how to play basketball. I had never played basketball in my life. So I sat down next to my dad just because I loved bonding with him. I knew he loved basketball. I was more into the academic side of things. I was a good student. My mom would preach over and over again that she didn't raise average kids, so we couldn't come home with a C or below. So I sat down next to my dad, and he was watching, I remember it. We had a black and white Zenith TV set. And you young listeners out there, I may have lost you already, but back in the day, we had these boxes, and they had these antennas that came from behind. That's how we got our picture. We only had like 3 channels, but my dad was watching a basketball game. So I sat down, and I started to watch the game, and I asked him questions, probably too many for him because he was trying to really focus in on the game. But after a while, I stopped asking him questions because I saw something on the TV screen. I saw something in that basketball game that made my heart just pound a little bit faster. You've had that feeling, right? You've seen something, you were inspired by something that just got your heart rate going. You wonder what that was. Well, it was because you were inspired by it. It was something that was fascinating to you. I saw one particular player out there. Didn't know who he was. I just knew, one, he had some cool shorts on. And he had the basketball in his hand, and it looked like a grapefruit. And I could see 3 or 4 of the opponents trying to get the ball from him, and they weren't about to get that ball from him. He put the ball on the floor, and another cool thing about him, he's had this cool hairdo. He had an afro that came out about here. He turned, and his afro kind of followed him a second later. But he went down the court full speed. He rolls up over 2 or 3 opponents, and he made the most beautiful move I think a human being could make in the air. This man was incredible. I didn't know who he was. I asked my dad, I said, "Dad, that guy right there is pretty good, isn't he?" He said, "Yes, son. That's one of the greatest athletes in the world." I said, "Well, who is he, Dad?" He said, "Son, that's Dr. J." I had no idea who Dr. J was. My next question to my dad was, "Dad, doctors can play professional basketball." That's how unknowledgeable I was about the game. But my dad proceeded to tell me about this guy and who he was and why he was great and why he had a nickname. His real name was Julius Erving. That was the day I believe I discovered a passion for something. Now, maybe it wasn't right at that moment because for a lot of us, those exciting moments sometimes fade away. You see something exciting, you say to yourself, boy, that looks fun. Maybe I should try that. But then life gets in the way and something else comes along. But it stuck with me. It stuck with me for days. I wanted to be that man I saw on TV. I wanted to be Dr. J. How was I going to do that? I couldn't play basketball. Well, I figured I'd ask the right question to the right person. My dad knew the game. Why not ask him to teach me? And that's what I did. That started my journey and my passion for this. My dad took me out in the yard. We didn't have one of those portable hoops, but we pulled up some weeds. We threw some sand down there, and my dad cut the top off a garbage can about that thick, and he nailed it to the house. And I had my makeshift basketball court. He found an old basketball somewhere. It was pretty deflated. We didn't have a pump. But he brought me out there, and he started teaching me the fundamentals of the game of basketball. He also started this catalog because I love me some Dr. J. He started everything Dr. J, newspaper articles, magazine articles, basketball cards with the bubble gum inside the package. And I started to build this library of all things Dr. J because it was my goal. I know it was silly. I was a kid. I couldn't be someone, but I was going to come as close as I could to being that man that brought me that excitement. I had my plan. I had my dad teaching me drills. I read that Dr. J played organized basketball. So my dad taught me a little bit that summer. And my first year of junior high school, I remember seeing the sign above the gym door, basketball tryouts. It hit me. Dr. J did that. I couldn't wait to walk into those gym doors and try out for the basketball team. And the day that I did, I walked in, there were 50 other guys standing there trying out for the basketball team. Here's one thing I noticed, because you have to have this perception of confidence when you're walking into a situation like that, especially when I didn't know the game very well. I looked around on both sides of me, and not one player, as a 6'5" athlete, well, I really wasn't an athlete yet, there was not one player in that room that came above my waist. All right, so in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, the rim's 10 feet from the floor, I'm taller than anyone else in here, and I'm closer to the rim than anyone else in here, so my chances of making this basketball team are pretty darn good. Now, my skills weren't that up to par because the coach immediately wanted to see where our skill levels were. So we started on one end. I was kind of in the middle, so if you were watching us, the line would go something like this. And so I was in the middle, and the ball was on the end, and each kid had about 10 seconds to perform a drill that the coach asked us to perform. First one was ball handling. He wanted us to dribble the ball and see if our eyes were up and see if we didn't lose it. And I quickly noticed that most of the kids were pretty good at that. My dad hadn't gotten to the one yet where you hit the ball and it came back and you kept hitting it, right? He just didn't have enough time. But the ball came to me, and about the time I was about to put it on the floor, I realized that I was wearing a size 15 shoe. And the ball hit the tip of my shoe and went all the way down the other end of the court. So I ran down, I grabbed the basketball, and I came back. I wanted to try it again to try to impress the coach. He said, "Next." I left that day thinking that was the hardest that I ever had to work for anything. Those drills were so hard. My dad didn't have time to really get to a lot of them. But I felt my chance of making that basketball team was going to be with the tool I already had, which was my height, because I didn't have all the other skills like the other kids had. I came back the next day because I was so excited to get back to school, because back in those days, if you made a basketball team, the coach would put a piece of paper on the gym door and your name would be on it if you were on the team. I jumped off the bus, I ran down the hall, I ran to the coach's office, and there was the piece of paper. And I stood there and I stared at it for probably 30 seconds, like my name was gonna magically appear on the list. I got cut from the team that year. Here I am, 6'5", almost twice as tall as the guy who made the team. And all of a sudden, as I was looking at that list, my eyes started to water, because that was really the first time in my young life that I had ever felt the pain of failure. Every other thing that I had tried out for, I played 3 instruments, I was in the chorus, I was in a bunch of clubs at school, my grades were great. I had had a lot of success until that point, and I didn't really know how to handle it. Here I am, this 6'5", 7th grader, just bawling my eyes out because I just got cut from the team. So, failure. Can you remember the first time you failed at something? How'd you feel? I always say the level of pain you felt is directly related to how much passion you had for that. I know people who fail at things and don't really even care because their passion wasn't there for it. I can't remember a time that I had been hurt any worse than that, standing there in front of that piece of paper with my name not on it. But I was resilient. I stayed in my yard. I practiced my Dr. J moves. There were times before the sun went down, I was out there by myself. Always played this game, 5 seconds left on the clock. My team's down by a point. I've got the ball in my hands, but I'm not me, right? I'm not ever me. I'm always Dr. J. I went back my 8th grade year because my passion basically helped me decide whether I was going to go back or not. I didn't hesitate. I knew I loved it. I knew what I wanted. I could envision where I could be in a couple of months. So I walked right back into that gym, same coach, a lot of the same guys trying out for the basketball team. I was a little bit better because I worked on my game. The next day I came back, I ran down the hall, looked at that piece of paper, and lo and behold, no name. Oh, did I mention I was 6 feet 7 inches tall in the 8th grade? No name on the piece of paper, so twice, 2 times, failure in the same thing. So after you failed the second time at something, something happens, right? You need something, right? Even after the first time, but the second time, because you persevered and you knew what you wanted and you didn't let that failure stop you, but it just wasn't enough. I'm standing there looking at that list, I'm wiping my eyes, pretending like there's something in it so the guys don't see me cry. And as I turn to walk away, I hear my name being called, Thurl. I turned around and it was the coach who just cut me. He walked up to me, I remember it like it was yesterday. He stood in front of me and he crossed his arms and he looked up at me like this. And this is what he said. He said, son, you need to give it up. You were not meant to play basketball. I don't have time to teach you how to play this game because I'm looking for guys who can help me win this year. So he was looking for a championship now. And my skills obviously weren't enough to help him get to where he wanted to go. He had his goal, and I wasn't going to be a part of that plan. And he wasn't done. He said, you've got 1 more year at this school. Don't try out for the team next year because you'll be wasting my time and yours. So some would say I got what I needed. Because a lot of times after failure, what kind of people do you attract? You attract those people who may be in your corner and patting you on the back and say, don't give up, don't give up. But sometimes you may need to hear something a little bit different, like I did. I knew that my goal to be Dr. J was probably not going to come on an organized basketball court, especially after I heard what Coach Gray said. But I was always in my yard. I was in the confines of my own fence, pretending to be Dr. J every single day, working on my game. Because maybe there would be an opportunity somewhere along the line if I kept working, if I kept trying, if I pushed through those difficult times. I went back for my last year of junior high school, my 9th grade year, at 6'9". I would walk down the hall and I would try so hard not to look up at the poster above the gym door. I knew it was there. I'd get to the end of the hall and I just couldn't help myself. I had to turn and look. I remember what the coach told me, but maybe there was an opportunity. And this is where the opportunity came. That coach that cut me 2 years in a row got a pay raise, and that meant he was going to another school. So my school hired a new coach. I didn't know him. He didn't know me. What in the world would take me back into that place, into that gym, a third time for potential failure? Let me ask you that question. What would take you back? What would take you back to that place that didn't feel so good those past 2 years? Well, hopefully, it's that passion. It's that passion you felt. It's that day you decided that this is what I really want. If there's an opportunity to get it, I'm going to show up. It was really different that year because I decided to go back into that gym that year under a new coach. We're walking into the gym and the coach is standing outside the door shaking hands, welcoming everybody in. It was different for me to see that. Once we all got in there, he shut the doors, he got all of our attention, and he said, guys, congratulations. You know, there's 55, 60 of us in there trying out for the team. He could only keep 12 or 13. He said, congratulations. We kind of looked at each other. He said, congratulations for showing up. You showed up. That's the first step. Now, there are other guys out there who aren't in here today that will wish they showed up. We proceeded to go through the drills, and I believe that everyone in that gym thought they had a shot. Not because of what we thought about our skills, but because of how that leader, that coach treated us. I remember that coach probably going to every single player and giving them some kind of compliment or showing them how to do something the right way. He came up to me and he said, Thurl, good job. You can be a pretty good shot blocker. Well, I found out that at 6'9", if I'm guarding a shorter guy and he shoots it, I put my hand up, the ball just hits my hand. That is a block shot in basketball. But I felt good. If I wasn't the worst player in that gym, I was probably right next to him. That day came and went. The next day, I get off the bus, I meander down the hall. I didn't run with excitement to see what was going to be on that piece of paper. I kind of meandered down the hall and I got to the coach's door, and lo and behold, on that piece of paper, right at the top, matter of fact, it was the first name on the list, Thurl Bailey. I felt really special because I knew he thought of me first. He put my name. It was alphabetical order, but it was still at the top. So it was the most exciting day of my life. After 2 years of disappointment, after sticking with it, after getting through all of what I needed to and creating an opportunity for myself, I was ready. I made the team. Listen, I knew I wasn't a very good player, and making that team wasn't what changed my life. This is what changed my life. 2 days after I made the basketball team that year, coach calls me into his office. He sits me down, he looks at me and he says, Thurl, if you want to be a great basketball player, you've got a lot of work to do. A lot, he emphasized. But if you're willing, I'll come in 1 hour before the team practices and I'll stay 1 hour after to work with you. And in my mind, I'm thinking, this guy barely knows me. Why would he sacrifice all that time for me? And he told me, he looked me in my eyes and he said, son, I see potential in you. I see potential in you you don't even see in yourself. And if you're willing to commit, to make that commitment, I'll be here for you. That's when I truly learned what a leader was. I made that commitment that day. I didn't play much. The coach wanted the first possession of every game, so I started every game. I went in for the jump ball. There was always the smaller guy guarding me. I would always get the first possession on the tip. Once we got the first possession, the coach would call a timeout, and I'd come out for the rest of the game. Okay. I only averaged 2.3 seconds per game in junior high school. But you know what? For me, that was an accomplishment. My parents were there at every single game. And you know what we talked about on the way home? My mom couldn't stop talking about it. Baby, that was a beautiful jump ball you got there today. I can't wait till next week. Went on to high school, wasn't good enough to play varsity. I started to really come into my own my senior year. I got a scholarship to North Carolina State University. A guy named Norm Sloan, Coach Norm Sloan recruited me. We loved him as a family. I signed to go to North Carolina State. After my first year at NC State, Coach Sloan decides to take a job at another school. I don't know what's up with these coaches leaving after my first year. But I was distraught. I mean, think about it. You're a college student. Your family kind of ships you off, right? And they're relying on that coach and that coaching staff to kind of raise you. So after my first year under that coach, he leaves to go to another school. And me and a few other guys are like, well, what are we going to do now? We lost our leader. Change isn't easy. I called my mom. I said, Mom, Coach Sloan, he just took a job at another school. I'm coming home. I'm going to quote my mom. Son, you may be going somewhere, but you ain't coming here. You're going to stay there. You're going to get your education. And you're going to see what the new coach has to say and then decide from there. So I was patient. I waited. We're all in the room, and in walks a guy who we had never met. He introduces himself. He said, guys, I'm your new head coach. My name is Jim Valvano. You can call me Coach. You can call me Coach V, whatever. I know how you're feeling. Most of you don't even want to be here. But if you'll listen to me for the next 15, 20 minutes, I want to tell you about my dream. He said, after I'm done, if you still want to go elsewhere, I'll sign your release papers. So this coach was about to lose 3/4 of his team if we didn't want to stay. He said, I want to tell you about my dream. I know, he said, that I'm going to win a national championship. Now, I don't know how much you know about NCAA basketball, but it's hard to win an NCAA championship. There are many great teams, many great players, and we weren't even on the radar. He said, guys, I've dreamt it. I know what it looks like. I know what it feels like. And I hope this is the team that can get there. I promise you, he said, there won't be a day that goes by that I won't talk about something related to the ultimate goal that we need to get to. The ultimate goal. Think about that for a minute. Picture your ultimate goal that you have in mind. And there's all this other stuff in between. There's losses. There's being blown out by 25, 30 points. There's some wins in there that you celebrate, but don't have time to celebrate a lot. He said, I know we're going to get there. None of us left the school because after he was done speaking, you felt like if you left, you were going to miss something great. Let me tell you how unusual and unorthodox this leader was. We're waiting for him at practice. He's about 2 or 3 minutes late. And he walks in with a ladder under his arm. And we're kind of looking at him like there's nothing broke in the arena. But he puts the ladder underneath the basketball hoop. And he says, today, for the next 2 hours, guys, as he pulled out a pair of gold scissors that he kept on his desk, we're going to practice cutting down the nets. So we looked at each other, kind of dumbfounded. He said, yeah, Thurl, you're going to go up first. Other guys will follow you, and I'll go up last. I'll cut the last piece down. I'll put the net around my neck, and you guys are going to pick me up and carry me around this 12,000-seat arena like you just won the national championship. Only thing we could think of was awkward. It was the most awkward thing we'd ever done in our lives. We didn't know. We had no reference. Like, woo! We just didn't know what he wanted. And he tried to explain to us, guys, if you want to be great, you've got to get a little bit uncomfortable, right? You have to do things that are different. And I want you to put yourself in that place. What does that success look like to you? What does cutting down the nets mean in your life? In basketball, when you win a championship, it's the ceremonial celebration. So we did that twice a month. That was all we did for practice. In 1983, a team out of nowhere from North Carolina State University found themselves in the national championship game against a team from the University of Houston. They called them Phi Slamma Jamma because they had so many great athletes. They dunked just about everything. How did we get there? Well, some of it may have been luck, but I think we earned it. We created it. We worked hard enough to create those opportunities to be there. All we had to do was go out and individually give our best and collectively come together. And we ended up in Albuquerque, New Mexico, in the championship game against a guy named Hakeem Olajuwon and another Hall of Famer, Clyde Drexler. It was a tight game pretty much all the way through, but at the end, with 44 seconds left on the clock, we have the basketball. I pass the ball to my teammate who's a little bit beyond half court. He heaves it up, and my teammate Lorenzo Charles had the wherewithal to catch the basketball in midair and dunk it. NC State, #1 team in the country. 99%, I would say, of the people who were picking the winner of that game wouldn't have picked us. The crowd rushes the floor. We're celebrating. Here's the interesting part. When the dust kind of cleared and things settled down, the representatives from the NCAA bring the ladder out and they put it underneath the hoop. There's also a representative that has a box with a pair of scissors in it, presenting it to the coach to start the cutting down the net ceremony. As he walks up to Coach Valvano, Coach stops him in his tracks and reaches into his suit jacket pocket and pulls out the gold scissors that we had practiced with over and over and over again. We all looked at Coach V in amazement as if, how did you know? How did you know this moment would be here? How did you get us to believe that? No one thought that we could achieve this. What's your passion? Are you passionate about what you do? I tell you this story because it's part of my journey, but you have a journey. Listen, you are a part of an amazing company in Nu Skin that has amazing products. But you're not just selling Nu Skin, you're selling yourself. You're selling your journey. You're selling your passion, what brought you here. Leadership. There is no different path to become a leader. You have to work hard. You have to go through failure. You have to see potential in others. People ask me about that coach who cut me 2 years in a row. Did I go back and rub it in? I said, no. When I made it to the NBA, I searched him out. We went to Washington, D.C., and I said, Coach, thank you. Thank you for helping me make a decision of what I wanted to do and what I wanted to be. Here's 4 tickets to the game tonight. Because he did, he helped me. He helped me decide. My full circle moment came when I was selected the 7th pick in the first round by the Utah Jazz. I'm sitting on the bench for the Utah Jazz and the coach calls me into the game. That night we're playing the Philadelphia 76ers. And as the game started up again, one of my opponents came over and reached his hand out and said, Thurl, congratulations for a great college season and welcome to the NBA. As I turned to shake his hand, I couldn't mistake the afro. It was Dr. J. It was the same Dr. J that gave me the passion to want to play this game. The same Dr. J that I idolized and pretended I was every single day. Stay passionate. Continue to have the lens that everyone has potential. What can you offer to that person to have them envision the ultimate goal? Good luck to you. Thank you for having me be a part of your success. Take care.
Wow, thank you so much, Thurl. We so appreciate you taking the time to share your story with us and to inspire our Nu Skin leaders. Of course, we cannot let you leave without some incredible Nu Skin products.
Awesome.
So we hope you enjoy. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You bet. Of course, things are not done just yet. We have Latin America and Canada breakout meetings